Squeeze the lemon, that there's more life for you. Decide God has a great plan for my life. I'm going to be a great steward. I'm going to do all that I can. And when I do make mistakes, because you'll make them, when things don't go my way, because sometimes they won't, that I'll learn from those things, and those are opportunities for me to grow. God has a great plan for my life, and ultimately, I'm going to see everything that God has for me.
That's impossible.
Let me tell you what I believe.
But your weakness is not your technique.
Yes! Yes!
Don't think you are. Know you are.
The Impossible Life Podcast.
I mean, you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. An idea that is fully formed, fully understood, that sticks.
This is the Impossible Life Podcast because Nick and I are attempting to live impossible lives. What we know is that nothing is impossible. So instead of using impossible as an excuse to not try, we'll use the pursuit of impossible as an accelerant for greatness. If something's never been done before, that just means it's unexplored. If they tell you it's too hard, it's just waiting to be simplified. Impossible is a default label used by uncourageous people, unwilling to take a risk. The real truth is this. The solution to any impossible task starts with this question. If I had to, what would it take?
Welcome to another episode of the Impossible Life Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick Surface, and I'm looking across at a man who has invented the term won't power because he won't quit, won't get distracted, and won't accept limitations. That's right, friends, the former Navy SEAL, Garrett Unkelbach, a man who thinks willpower is for losers.
Get yourself a can of won't.
Hey, we could sell that. That's going to be our new energy drink. The Impossible Life Won't Power.
That's funny.
It could be. Jocko has Mulk, which I still don't understand where that came from. But do you know anything about that?
I feel like I know, but it's not coming to my mind.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, that just came to my mind. Today's episode, man, it's one that we've been discussing for a few weeks now, and it was great to flesh it out this morning and get on here.
Every once in a while, I just shoot Nick a cryptic text.
Yeah. It'll be like 4 words, and he'll be like, put that in your ideas thing. I'm like, okay. And so the next time I see him, I say, so tell me what this was. And so this started off as Bending Principles, and the working title, as always, is Demand More. And it harkens me back, we have a lot of people, I reference this and I see the numbers. A lot of people go back to the first episode. I had a conversation with somebody actually.
I love when people tell me, they're like, man, I'm on episode 15 and it's so good. And I'm like, I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, I know.
You're really gonna like it if you keep going.
That's what I say. I go, just wait, it gets better. Because I listen to those and I'm like, oh man. And I actually had somebody that told me, they're like, hey, I've listened to this many episodes. I haven't gone back to episode 4 yet though, where you sit in the ice bath, because that's the one that you don't want people to listen to. And I just kind of started like smiling to myself. I was like, yeah. You'll hear, you'll get to hear how much I've grown. I was like, that was me having my eyes peeled back to see my relationship with pain and not liking it. But in our very first episode, the reason I'm reminded of this is I love that we titled the first episode "There's More Life." Yeah, because like I didn't realize, but I remember I'd forgotten I titled it that, and I looked back maybe a year afterwards and I was like, oh, that's a great title, which isn't me patting myself on the back.
About the impossible life,
but that's exactly right. And so today about demand more, there is more life. Like we said that in the first episode, and I think what inspired me on the first episode was that you said that the most impressive thing in your life to that date was that you were a Navy SEAL, but you were moving fast towards a time when that would be another thing on the resume. And I love that thought process. I still see you living that thought process, running here with you for 4 years. We
totally just skipped right over our anniversary.
Yeah, we recently passed 4 years and just kind of went like, it's a Tuesday. But don't do that in your marriage. It's okay to do that with your bro on a podcast, not in your marriage.
I did put our 5-year on the calendar, though.
Well done.
So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know what we're going to do. Probably something painful, but it'll be fun. So anyways, this demand more thought process, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. Like the result of this episode is not you're going to go off and crush, do nothing but drink ID Life Energy all day, skip sleep, and, just be 23 hours a day grind guy. That's not where we're leading to. But I think that there's this limitations that we accept so often in life in our minds. And recently I shared this, and Garrett and I talked about it off air, but I don't think we talked about it on air. I talked about how I had reached our 100-miler, which we're getting ready to do Garrett brought it up this morning. We're going to be doing another ultra marathon here.
It's only Lindsay wants to run a 50.
Yeah.
So I said, of course.
Yeah. And once you said you were in, I literally rolled my eyes because I was like, I don't want to do this. No part of me does, but I know I'm going to. So, hey, can't wait.
Bro, a 50 is like...
No, I know. I know. But I don't want to get distracted by that. There's a whole nother thought process of how hard I've been working to put on muscle. And like, hey, what's great for muscle building is lots of long running. Anyways, but in the 82nd mile of the 100 miler,
I think today's episode is going to be good for you as it relates to your mindset around the 50.
You're actually right.
Why don't we just go into the 50 and say, you know what would it take for Nick to gain muscle?
I already
in the
had
50 prep?
dude. I literally had that word with myself while I was like setting up here. I already said to myself, I was like, well, you can't just commit to that. But anyways, I was just letting the audience hear what was going on in my internal monologue as I'm working myself to the point where I know I'm going to end up. But you know, I still go through the cycle. Anyways, when we ran the 100 miler, I talked about how at the 82nd mile, I was telling the story on this podcast, and I said I'd reached the end of myself physically, and I was talking about this moment I had with God, and I thought it was, for me, the point I was trying to make is that God met me in this moment, and I had like, truthfully, I know it was like a supernatural encounter, but Garrett was very quick to point out, you weren't at the end of your physical. You
said, get up, nerd.
No, that's what you said in the moment, but you told me on the podcast, you're like, you weren't at the end of yourself physically. And I remember when you said that, my immediate thought was I was kind of like, well, how does he know? And then I was like, well, he's seen some guys do some things and he's done them himself and gone a lot further. And what I love, like you could be like, well, forget that guy if you were an offended person. But what I love about that is I get to be with a guy who's seen a level. I say it all the time. You've seen a level of performance, of standards, of demand that most people would say is not possible. Like it's not possible to stay up for 5 days straight and just get beat down like you're a prisoner. Not only is it not possible, I've done it. And so have 5,000 other people. Wait, what?
Yeah, and also, why don't you read a really great book, Unbroken,
Right.
by Laura Hillenbrand about Louis Zamperini's life.
So good.
And you'll see it's actually where some of SEAL training comes from.
Yeah.
Like the original UDTs who in the 60s created SEAL training were survivors from those concentration camps. They said, you know what? Here's what a man is capable of.
Yeah.
And here's what will take a man down to his core. And these are all guys who went through that experience. And then in the Korean War, they're like, I want to go to war with the guys that I was in that camp with and survived and fought. Like, these are the real warriors.
Yeah.
And so, like, even you think SEAL training, oh, wow, SEAL training. Well, the guys who created it had actually seen what a person's life was capable of.
Yeah. I always highlight in that book, like Louis Zamperini, by the end of that book, he talks about dysentery. Like you and I would talk about having like a minor like skin irritation.
Take your story of like slam dunking SEAL training back to one of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, cool story.
Yeah.
They were feeding you? Yeah, you're lucky. Yeah, it's just wild. But that's
you didn't have to eat out of the same bowl that you took a crap in.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was a prisoner of war, and he had to do that. But in the teams, you guys have they taught you this thought process, and Garrett has shared this before, but I don't know if you've actually said it on the podcast. So I want you to share it because this is kind of a leaping off point for a lot of people.
Well, one of the things they talked about it often. And this is like the point that Nick was at, and this is why I was telling him that he was capable of more. The point that Nick was at where he's like, oh, man, like I'm done. It's like, bro, you're at 10% of your capacity. This is what they would talk about in SEAL training. Where you think your limits are really is about 10% of most people's capacity. Where you think your limits are is where you think, like you're saying, I've never gone this far before. Okay, that's not your limit. It's just like you don't know what's after that. It's like the scene from Lord of the Rings when they're leaving. He's like, well, I've never gone this far before. And that was like less than 10% of their total journey.
Right.
Or I've never, we take one more step and this is the furthest I've ever been. Yeah, you're like barely beginning the journey.
Yeah.
That's where most people are in their level of like pushing themselves and what their limitations are. Maybe you're just getting outside of what's comfortable for you, what you're used to. And where a lot of people start pumping the brakes is like, well, man, like, what if I give everything, like if I like push myself even further than this, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And
you see it in SEAL training, like instructors call it out. They're yelling at students, stop holding back.
Yeah.
Like on Wednesday, right? Like you've been going for almost 72 hours, like pushing yourself, and you'll see, and that's they're motivating you. It's the best motivation you're going to get in Hell Week. Like no one's going to encourage you.
Right.
But you'll see guys, you're kind of just like, you experience this in the 100 miler where you kind of just start having like a downtrodden attitude.
Yeah.
You're not fighting to
Yeah.
like demand more out of your flesh. And that's what they're saying, guys, stop holding back.
Right.
Right. And that's like, because Wednesday is the turning point.
Yeah.
People by like middle of the day, Wednesday, no one quits after that.
Really?
But like into Wednesday, they're still, now they don't let off the gas at all in Hell Week, but it's just, there's just this point after like Wednesday afternoon where no one quits anymore.
Yeah.
Now there are people who like med fail.
Right.
Right. Like leg breaks or their lungs give out or whatever, and they get rolled back. But no one really quits after that point. But they're pushing people like, keep going. There's more in you. That's what they're saying. They just don't say it in a nice way, obviously.
Yeah. I love that. So capture that. Think about the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, whether it be a bad relationship, whether it be something you did physically, whatever it's gone through, and somebody goes, hey, that's 10% of your limitation. I think for a lot of people, their reaction would be rage. You don't know what I've been through. That's the natural response, right? It's like, you don't know. How can you tell me that? Well, here's a counter thought. What if they're right? What's the other 90% look like for you? And if that doesn't excite you, like I have chills, which is kind of weird because this is our podcast, but I have chills thinking about that. What's the 90%? If you think 10% is everything you got, what else lies before you on 90%? There's a quote we love that we referenced a lot in the 100 miler, and I think is just such a great quote for life from William James, who's considered the father of American psychology. And it says, beyond the very extremity of fatigue, distress, amounts of ease and power that we never dreamed ourselves to own, sources of strength habitually not taxed at all, because habitually we never push through the obstruction. He's saying that amounts of ease and power lie there waiting for us, but because we don't push through the obstruction, we never ever get there. And it reminded me when I was going to the 100 miler, for me, that was the biggest, toughest thing. And actually, when I think about the 50 miler, it actually isn't that big a deal because, as we said, on the 100 miler, the first 55 miles,
We had a great time.
I was like, I feel amazing. Let's go play golf.
If we would have stopped at the 50, that would have been like, oh, what a great time.
Yeah, we would have just been like, man, that was so easy. So like, good thing is I know a few things I need to do for this one. But
So I'll sign in March. I'll sign you up for the 100.
Oh, great. Whenever we finish the 50, you're going to propose that one to me? Yeah. The thing is, I'd be like, great, let's do it. Anyways, I'm not going to say no, dude. You know that. We're going to do whatever we're going to do. But like, I remember when I was going to the 100 miler, for me, that was like, I wanted to really test myself. And you said something actually yesterday I thought was so great. You said when you start to have a great identity, you want to be tested. And I've experienced that during the course of like, oh, I'm afraid to fail, to like, no, I need to find out what it's like to get in that dark moment. It's like, that's why I love climbing Pikes Peak, because between the altitude just puts you in a space where you have to take hold of your thinking in a way that you can't simulate, even if you push yourself in a hard workout, because I think, okay, yeah, you can get yourself to the point where you feel really bad, but to feel like you're drunk and like in a way that you can't just be like, stop, it is crazy. Like you can't drink enough hydration to make yourself not feel that way. And that's the gift of altitude. And so when I was doing the 100 mile, I remember talking to some of my friends about it. And I was telling them what I'm doing. They're like, dude, you're crazy. Like, why are you doing that? And I said, don't you guys wonder? Like, I was like, I want to see what happens, like where my limit is. I was like, don't you want to know where yours is? There was zero interest. They're like, nah, we're good. And like that to me was, I don't know, man. Like, look, and I didn't reach the limits because I finished it. Like, what are my actual limits? I still don't know, but that excites me. And so this is the thought process of more. What are you actually capable of? We say that greatness is getting 100% of it, getting all God had for you. Well, what you think 100% is not even close to God's 100%. And so the more equation, as my friend Garrett here is so good at seeing the world through math. He's like the beautiful mind guy, except for he's not weird. Well, you are weird, but not like, you don't have anything diagnosed.
I just see like people, like you have people have their dominant energies, people have their dominant mindsets, people have their dominant thought processes. And for me, I'm math dominant.
Yeah.
So I see things through like a logic. I see things through math. I see things algebraically. And that's where like math is the foundation of language for me.
Right.
Right. It's not the other way around. And so I was saying to Nick, like people will say to me, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, that's actually not a true statement.
Yeah.
Like you just said, 2 + 3 is 4. I'm like,
Right.
that is like empirically not a true statement. Now I shouldn't do that. That's a true statement. But saying that I can't do that, that's not true. You are giving me bad math. And like the setup and the intro for what we're going to talk about today is I want to help people just live with some better math. And we're not going to do a lot of math on today's podcast, but we're going to help the mindset around your math.
Yeah, I think that's. Would you call yourself the ultimate X factor, like the ultimate, the ultimate?
That's hey, you know what? I do love multiplication, right? Like multiplication and division are powerful tools, and a lot of people's mindset is a division for them where it should be a multiplication.
Yeah.
And so that's what today is going to be. Like I look like here's your potential, and then you have all these limiting factors that are a X that is less than 1, right? Like you took what your potential was and you multiplied it by 0.6 because of the way that you think.
Right. Yeah. And I'm going to write an intro for you about how you are the ultimate variable, like the infinite variable. All right. So the more equation that Garrett gave, this is how you get to more, which is reject limitation, demand more, unlock possibility. Now that may sound like, okay, yeah, I like that. But we're going to give you practical examples of this. We're going to dive into limitations, where they come from. We're going to dive into true belief, right, that allows you to demand more, and show you different areas of your life where you are actively settling. And I'm not, we all are prone to this. The you is very much a collective you. It's all of us. So G, with the reject limitations, demand more, unlock possibility. You were talking about, obviously you own a construction company.
Let me give an example. This is a simple example. I know there are many of you on this podcast that are far, far, far smarter than me. I am not a learned man. The last time I sat in a classroom was in high school. However, what I do know is that I remember what I learned. And so like what I'm saying is there's a lot of science people that listen to this podcast. I love you guys, and I love when you send me texts or emails and tell me, like, help me in my thinking. But I'm just going to use a really simple example here. There's more complicated ones, but I'm going to use a really simple example of real limitations that control, like what are principles? Principles govern outcomes, okay? And I'm going to use a real simple example. This is one that anyone who does like construction or project management, they understand this, and that's speed, cost, and quality, okay? Like the joke in construction is pick 2. Like which ones do you want? Right. Speed, cost, and quality. Right? If you want to do a kitchen upgrade in your house, you want it to be really nice and you want it to be really fast, it's going to be super expensive.
Right.
Right? You remodel a bathroom and you want it to go really quick and you don't want to spend that much money, the quality is going to be terrible.
Right.
Right? Speed, cost, and quality, like pick 2. That's what people always say. And so like those things are pulling on each other. They don't work together. I'm in the middle of a very high 8-figure construction project right now. And I have been making a lot of demands for us to go faster. This is the factory build out that we're doing for Union. We're trying to do something in under a year that the last time somebody did one took 5 years.
Wow.
So like we are rejecting some limitations in a sense. And I've said, go faster. And I've said, we're not going to spend this. Here's my cap on how much we're going to spend. We must go faster. And the quality, like we cannot have a loss in quality. And I'm immediately like breaking the rules. Like, well, you can't do that. Right. Except here's what I know. And that's where the bending principles thought process comes from. Like I was thinking about it with this project and many of the other things in my life where people say, you can't do that. And I'm like, that's not true. Right. People would say, well, if you're going to try to push the project faster, and without changing the cost, without changing the quality, you can't do that. And I go, yes, I can, and here's why. Those equations assume that you are at max efficiency, that we're already going as fast as we possibly could, that we are 100% efficient in our budget, and our quality is a direct output of the labor and materials that we've purchased. That is not like you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So without moving either of those levers, what I can do is just be more efficient. Right? If you understand friction in science, right? Friction is just a reduction of what's possible.
Right.
And so if I reduce friction, I can get more outcome with the same level of effort.
Right.
And so this is the bending principles thought process that I want us to get into today. There are principles that govern outcomes, and I'm not going to push you guys to like, hey, just go do it. Just go try whatever. You can do anything in life.
Right.
Like it doesn't matter, whatever. If you just try harder, you'll get more. That's not empirically true, that if you just try harder, you'll get more. But what I have seen is that most people will just accept a limitation.
Yeah.
Right? Where someone says to me, you can't go faster and not decrease quality or increase cost, I reject that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying I'm not willing to, like there is a pace that I must move at, and at some point I'll get to the place where I've done all I can do.
Yeah.
And now I have to release one of these levers, and we'll have those conversations. But before we get to that point, what I'm not seeing yet is that we're doing all that we can possibly do to maximize our current equation.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are wasteful in their time, they're wasteful with their dollars, they're wasteful with their energy, because they say, well, if you want things to change, you have to give up this.
Yeah.
And it is principally true. However, there's friction. However, there's a loss of what you're fully capable of. So let's maximize that.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally the perfect. It's the SEAL thought processes. Oh man, we're there. No, you're 10% now, and so you're like, well, I want to find out what the rest of the 90 looks like, and you have to take other people along for the ride, and that's the interesting part, because like limitations. So I asked Garrett this question when we were doing it, because I was like, we obviously need to look at limitations. I said, where do you think limitations come from? And he just looked up in the sky and he was like, God creates limitations.
That's Genesis 1.
Right.
God separated the land from the water. God
Right.
God separated the day from the night. God created the world of order. Like he created a universe that is governed by principles that we talk about on here all the time.
Yeah.
By the way, if you consider yourself a disciple of the impossible life, this is one of the ones that I really want you to understand. If you're not there yet, just keep leaning in and know that it's there for you. When you can catch and understand principles in your life, like I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
you start seeing it. It is the Matrix level of life.
100%.
Like at the end of the Matrix where Neo like sees differently. He doesn't see the guys. He sees everything in the code. He sees the numbers. Like this is what it's like when you begin to see principles in your life. So I'm just wanted to say that really quick. If you are someone who's like, not like, oh man, I like listening to those guys. They're cool. It motivates me. Nick tells a funny joke like every third episode. No,
Okay.
but if you're someone who's like, this is for me, I really want all that I can get out of life. Just know one of the first things I really want you to understand is principles.
And also understand that Garrett doesn't know humor. Just had to say that. Yes, I'm going to respond to that comment. And also, we cover mindset mastery. We cover principles, and we have that there for people to. You can literally come join mindset mastery and go. If you're struggling with that, have us teach it to you so you can grasp it. Because you're 100% right, man. Nothing. I don't know that anything has removed fear from me more than understanding principles. Because like I don't hope that seed is going to grow in the ground anymore. I understand why it grows.
It's like in shooting where guys bring me their weapon and they're like, when they don't know where the bullet's actually going to go.
Yeah.
When I shoot, I know exactly what the bullet's going to do.
Yeah.
Not just because I sighted it in myself. The Navy like taught me all of the physics of how weapons work, how the weapon works, how gravity is affecting the bullet, what wind does to the bullet, time in the air, all of these things. I understand all of this. So there's no hope for me. When I pull the trigger, it's math.
Yeah.
And what if you felt that way about your life, that when you pull the trigger, it's math, instead of you pull the trigger and you hope something good happens?
If you haven't experienced that, I said to Garrett recently, because I sighted it, and I got a new deer hunting rifle because deer season's coming up. I'm very excited.
Shout out to our man, Stefan.
Stefan, thank you, bro, for taking me. Our friend of the podcast, friend here in Frisco, and fortunately very highly trained. So he's taking me out. We mounted my scope, sighted my rifle, and I said to Garrett, I was like, I've never experienced in my life, because first of all, every time we've gone hunting, I'm shooting someone else's rifle for the first time as I'm on a deer, which is not a great way to do it. So I'm like, I want to get my own rifle, get it set up, and like really go in with confidence. So we're sighting this rifle in, and we've gone through like a lot of rounds to get this thing down to where it is. And so finally, we're like, he's like, great, you're sighting in at 100. He's like, go to 300. So I switched to 300, and there's this little like metal pig way out there. And I remember I hit it the first time, and I was like, oh, sweet. Well, what had happened when we were sighting the rifle in is I felt what it was like to know exactly where the bullet was going to go, like what you've described. Because on a lot of times when I've been on something, my breathing's going around, and I'm kind of pulling the trigger when it's moving the least. Well, because of stuff he was instructing me in, there was no movement. All I had to do was squeeze until I felt the surprise of the gun go off. And so when I pulled I was under there, and I was like, this is going. There was no doubt. I've never been behind where I'm like, oh man, I really hope this hits. Because you've been there when I hit a shot that you respected. And I will tell you that there was a lot of things that went right, but I was not 100% confident. I pulled this trigger, and I just sat back and waited for the ding, because it was far enough away that you do have like a second before it happens. And dude, it was an unbelievable feeling. And if you've not experienced that, you don't know what Garrett's talking about. And like he said, if you could feel that in life,
if you don't know principles, you're just standing in the batter's box with your eyes closed.
Right. I hope it hits my bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope it does too. Chances are it's not.
That's why you're bunting.
That's exactly
my best chance I got is just get what do they say? Get the bat in the zone, or keep what do the baseball the batting coaches say about like keep keeping the bat in front of the ball for a
Oh
max.
yeah, barrel in the zone. You want max
barrel,
time in the zone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
sorry.
I couldn't think of it. Barrel in the zone.
Man, that's like me trying to talk to you about bullet
That's
logistics.
that's bunting. The guy's like, well, I don't know where the ball's going to be, so
Yeah.
I'll just maximize
Yeah.
time in the zone
Time
with
zone.
my eyes closed.
Yeah, well, you
Just-
better. Too bad that thing's going to hit you in the face because yeah. Anyways, but so the limitations, like what we were going back to, like, and Garrett talking about this understanding of principle, that God creates these limitations, and when you know how to navigate them with principles, that's amazing. Well, here's the problem: most of the limitations that we face are our own created ones, and they're false. So imagine that.
God creates limitations. Man creates false limitations.
Right. And these are this is what I would call standards. And like we talk about standards on this podcast, and people are like, yeah, standards, super intentional, like tied to purpose, like Navy SEAL standards. Woo, I'm gonna get some standards. Here's what your standards actually are. It's the minimum you're willing to accept, and it's the stuff you stop questioning. This is what kills people, is that you have a default set of standards that you don't question anymore, and they're things that you just accept, which is why you would pull back and be like, oh, well, that we can't do that. And here's where I saw this. One of the reasons why we're in Texas is when we were in California, I picked up my first grader. She was then a first grader. Now she's a seventh grader. And she came in, and I was like, I brought my daughter with her, and they were talking to this girl as we were waiting to leave. And my then 4-year-old goes, she was nice to my older daughter. My older daughter goes, oh, she's not a she, she's a Z. And I was like, in the front seat of my car, I can still see it in my mind. This is like a 9/11 moment. I know exactly where I was, and I can still see it. Because literally the alarm bells, like I could see the spinning red light going, doo, 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 warning, danger, danger. And like,
Pull up.
If you know anything about kids, you know that you can't make something a massive deal, or else they'll take it and accelerate it times 10.
Yeah.
So I just,
We don't say that word.
right. Yeah.
We don't say what? Don't say this.
Yeah, don't say that. Don't say that word. You're going to hear it a lot. So I just took a breath and I was like, "Hey, babe, where'd you hear that from?" And she's like, "Oh, she told me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I paid attention to what who her mom was. The next time we were pick up, guess what? Guess what color her hair was? Bright blue. Like,
Shocker.
Like she had shaved her head, and you could see it. And so I was like, man,
I'm sure she was very joyful.
right. This girl is getting this from her mother. No one at
sad.
6 years old
It's
is
very
going
sad.
like, hey, I'm questioning my gender. They don't even know unless that's been indoctrinated into them. And I realized the reason we needed to leave is I didn't want my daughter growing up thinking that was a normal option.
While we're on this really quick, short rabbit hole, keep us on track here, Nick.
Yep.
I just want to share this for somebody. When you see people like that, and it's not just, people from the LGBT community, what those people are, they're lost people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And what the Bible describes them as, people who don't know Christ, people who don't understand kingdom, the Bible describes them as blind.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was sharing this with somebody the other day. This is just a great thought process for you to have. If Nick comes over to my house and trips over my couch, I'm going to laugh at him, right? I'll probably throw up a pillow at him while he's on the ground, like, what an idiot. And then I'll make fun of him later and tell my friends about it, because I'm a good friend. That's how you treat your friends.
Yeah. I haven't tripped over his couch, for the record.
But if a blind person came over to my
Right.
house and tripped over my couch, I'd say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, right? Like,
Yeah.
I should have helped you. Obviously, you didn't know my couch was there. Are you okay? And that is exactly the heart that you need to have with lost people.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes, like, what if that blind person comes over to my house and, he's got a coffee and trips over my couch and spills it all over my couch? Like, you're making my day really great here, man. Thanks. Right? Like, you're very inconvenient for me. Like, please quit stumbling around in the dark.
Yeah.
That's exactly the heart, and in a kind way, you need to have with people who are lost. Don't hold it against them. Their eyes are closed. They cannot see.
Yeah. That's very
And
good.
so treat them like you would treat a blind person.
That's very good, because the cultural norm now is like, we're on different sides, so I need to attack you. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not how God's
Would
seen
you
them.
beat up a blind guy?
Right. Yeah. No, that's very good. I'm glad you point that out. But returning back to this, I realized that if I raise my daughter in California, like, I know she's going to get her primary way of thinking from our house, regardless of where we live. So if you're in California, I'm not saying like, oh, you should give up hope. Not by any stretch of the imagination. But what I knew and what I had seen was that I did not want to raise my daughter in a place where I was going to have to be fighting that. So we probably, if we were going to stay there, honestly, we probably would have homeschooled or figured something else out, because I just didn't want her to grow up thinking that was normal. Because once it's normal, then you stop questioning it. And once you stop questioning it, you just accept it as part of your life. And what you think you're accepting is one thing, but what you're getting is a whole lot more. And that's where this becomes so poisonous and so dangerous, because underlying all that is not a godly thought process. It's not God on the throne. It's not God's order. It's not God's principles. It's man's way. It's like, oh, well, we can take control of something that God put a limitation on and just, call this gender that, or just say I identify as this. No, you can't. There's a part of you that God's given you that is limited.
It's the root of all sin. It's rebellion against God. It's
Right.
like, well, why can't we do it my way? Here's well, God, I know you made me as a man, but I want to be a woman. God, I know you made me as a woman, but I want to be a man. No, this is what God said. And if you're trying to say something different, you're in rebellion against God, and also everything you do is going to lead to destruction.
Yeah. And you talked about this, that this is like limitations, because I talked about how you get so much more. You said limitations are like people bringing stuff over to your house and being like, oh, hey, look.
Yeah, well, you asked me, you said, where do limitations come from?
Yeah.
Right. And so, God creates limitations. Man creates false limitations. And where limitations like end up in your life, it's like, man, where are all the, you start, I said to Nick, use this analogy for limitations. It's like if I blindfolded you and brought you into a house, you've never been outside the house, you can't go outside the house. And I say, this is your house. This is your home where you live. Well, and if you can't go outside and you don't know how big the house actually is, I can just put you in one room in the house. You're like, well, this is all I got.
Right. And
you actually don't know what's on the other side of some of your walls, right? Like what if you tore down the drywall and there's another 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 square feet of house in there? You don't know what's on the other side of that, and a lot of people just accept these limitations because they've been placed around them. Where this is people bring a thought process into your life, whether it's from parents, environment, whoever, things get brought into your life, and you accept these limitations as if they're normal. And what you've got to do is, it's kind of like, I'm not a stuff person. My wife and I have this conversation all the time, and then we're not unique, and this is very much a millennial thing. The boomers, love you guys that are listening to the podcast. My parents are anti-boomer in a lot of ways, and I love my parents for not being boomers. But boomers are stuff people, right? And it's not their fault. If you just study American history and the American economy, like this is where capitalism turned into peak consumerism,
right?
And the boomers were sold everything, and just stuff is how you make your life happy. You know what? Me and my wife have figured out that more stuff does not mean a better life. And people bring stuff over to my house, and I just have to throw it away, right? I didn't ask for this. I know you wanted to give me this. I didn't want that in my house.
Yeah.
Right? I want less things in my house, not more. And so what I do is I throw them away. And what you've got to do with limitations coming into your life is say, well, okay, thank you. I didn't ask for this, so I'm going to discard it. This is Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1.
Yeah.
Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run our race with endurance.
Yeah.
Right. And this is there's a lot of things that you can put off in the everything that hinders category. One of them is false limitations.
Yeah, very good.
Right. Because the truth, the understanding of the truth of who God is and the truth of his principles, when you live with a fearless, principled mindset, you'll throw off all this other stuff and then just have to deal with sin and say, you know what? And instead of just fighting sin, you're just choosing God. All of everything that is wrong in your life, it is rebellion against God. Sin is rebellion against God, and limitations are rebellion against God.
Yeah, so good. Now, I want to look at one of the primary limitations, but I don't want to just say it as is. You touched on it there with fear. But here, I think this is where fear is so deceptive, because when we're talking about finding limitations, there is a cost and a price to that. You don't just go like, yeah, now I'm not going to be 10% guy. Well, how do you know where 100% is? You don't.
I put on my fearless t-shirt.
Right. I put on my no fear t-shirt. No, that's not. There's the price is your time. It's your energy. It's failure. It's money. It's potentially relationships. There's a great cost to finding this. And let's say you have a business and you're like, man, I don't think we're running at full capacity. I think that I hear what Garrett and Nick are saying. Like, I believe that. Let's go figure it out. You know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to spend money, maybe hire new people, maybe squeeze more out of the people you already have, try a new process and say, hey, you know what? I think we could do this a different way. And you may try that way and it fails because maybe that wasn't part of the 90%. And for a lot of people are like, oh man, think of what I could have done with that, $30,000. once it's gone, like we have this like remorse of loss because and I would say that that's where fear will show up and rob you blind, because you go like, well, think of what I could have done with that. Well, what if it gets like, how much am I willing to spend? What if it gets to this point? And the what if monster starts coming in, which is how we've described fear before. And before you know it, you've talked yourself out of even being willing to pay the price to go on it. So like, you have to understand, fear is a primary limitation. And you talked about having a foundation of trust in God. And you talked about ultimately this is stewardship, because there's risk involved.
So stewardship is be faithful with what's given to you. And this is the test that God is giving to us is, will you be faithful with the little that I've given you? And this is also how you're going to learn principles in your life. Okay. God's not giving you $1 billion because you're not ready for it.
Right.
You would not be a good steward of it. You don't actually know what to do with it.
Right.
But if you'll be faithful with the little that you do have, God, that like, be faithful with it and also take risk with it. Be grateful that God has you exactly where you are. And this might be like a shattering thought process for somebody. You know how you don't have it all figured out yet? Well, what if we turned up the stakes dramatically?
Right.
Oh, well, that'll make you think a little bit differently.
Right.
I have some friends who they live a life that's a little bit different than other people's lives. One of my friends that I work with has a very large family trust fund that his grandfather built. Okay, and he's afraid of blowing it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right, like he's in the opposite position that a lot of people are like, man, I just wish I could get my chance. He's like, man, like so much. If I make a mistake, it's so costly.
Right.
And so be grateful that you are in exactly the position that God has put you in. He's got you there for a reason. And if you'll just be faithful with what you have, understand the principles for where you are, know that there's some things that you don't know, have courage to take a risk, trust in God, and do everything that you can do. Then when you make a mistake, you'll say, you know what? I just learned a great lesson. Now I know what governs outcomes.
Right.
Now I understand the limitations in the field that I'm in. And the next time I go back, I can get multiplication and not division.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a stewardship to this as well. If fear does not help you in any way. Fear just keeps you stuck. It's what keeps you out of the promised land. Release fear. Accept God's truth, accept principles, be courageous, and go learn. Take the wise risks, but you still have to take risks.
Yeah, and the key thing that you said was that you have to have the understanding that God is in control, because if you should be afraid if you're depending on yourself. That's probably the only time you'll tell me I'll say to somebody you should be fearful is that if you're depending on yourself, you should be afraid, because that is,
you got it all figured out.
Yeah, because that is we all know we're limited.
Yeah.
Like you will find confidence whenever your absolute trust is in God, because that's infinite, it's limited, it's limitless, and it's the right place to have your trust. It's literally where we're meant to have our trust. He says he'll keep your minds in perfect peace, he'll keep those in perfect peace whose minds are steadfast on the Lord. You have your trust in God. That is the big difference. So remember, the more equation is reject limitation. So we've just told you at limitation. Well, now we're going to demand more because we've rejected limitation. Well, what requires you to demand more, G? But belief. And here's we talk about belief on this podcast, and we always define it as it's what you know to be true but can't prove scientifically. And that sounds great. And if you listen to us enough times, you're like, yeah, I've heard this 50 times. Good. Well, make sure you actually think about what that means, because you know what real belief does, G? It creates an actual expectation. And there's a difference between like suspicion, where I think this might be true and I have a strong degree of suspicion that this is true, to be like, this is going to happen. Massively different. And that's the difference between belief.
That's what the Bible says faith is. It's the assurance of things not yet seen. Many people, their I believe you is just as weak as their I love you, right? Like, oh yeah, I'll say it, like, and I know what it means, but do you actually live it?
Yeah. If
If you truly believe in God, if you believe that the creator of the universe knows you, wants to have a relationship with you, is teaching you, setting you up for success, helping govern your life in a way that you're going to grow, mature, and become fully capable. If you really believe that, why aren't you willing to step out and take a risk?
Yeah.
The reason you don't, that you don't push forward, the reason that you're not reaching for all that you have, the reason that you're fearful is because you're focused, well, I know I believe in God, but I mean, what if he doesn't show up?
Yeah.
If he doesn't show up, that doesn't mean that he's not still there. It means that this is the place that God's brought you into. This is the thing that God wants you to deal with. Your what if is you, like, truly what a lot of people are saying in this is still a rebellious mindset.
Yeah.
If God doesn't show up, you're saying, well, I'm God, and why isn't the other God here doing what I want him to do?
Yeah.
That's not the way. He is the way. And what I've got to do is I've got to say, God, I fully submit to your way. And even when you don't do what I think is the right thing, I'm going to trust you in this.
Yeah, that's so good, G. Now, you told me about this. You had a situation recently where you got to show people just what belief looks like, because you're doing a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah, that's I guess an understatement. But I was on the construction mind of speed, cost, and quality because I'm in the middle of a really large project that we've been pushing forward. My dad's been doing an incredible job pushing this forward. Love getting to do big fun stuff with my dad. I'm so blessed in that. And one of the things that's really important for this job is utilities, and utilities get outside of your control. You got to work with these really big entities. And I had a large demand that they would go really fast, do it on our timeline, and they'd do it for free.
Sounds great. Who wouldn't want that?
And people were like, well, they're not going to do that. They won't do that. And I said, no, they will. And like, if they don't tell you what they're supposed to tell you, you tell me.
Right.
And I'm going to go have the next conversation, and I'll have the next conversation, and I will call whoever. And I'm also very much leveraging what my belief is about what we're doing, is that it is like critically important to our nation's security and to our nation's future. We must win at this mission. This ain't just about making money for us. It is like what Robert Gates said to me about where our nation is at. This is the most perilous time in our nation's history since World War II. And I said, you know what? I feel the exact same way about that I felt as a young man in the post 9/11 era. Like Edmund Burke said, evil prevails when good men choose to do nothing. I'm not going to let someone like Robert Gates, who knows the true state of the world, say to me, this is the most perilous time in our nation's history, and Garrett say, well, somebody should do something about that. I'm going to do all that I can, right? Because I care about my family, I care about my community, who both exist inside this nation that is a little blip in a very unique time in history. And it'll get ripped right out of our hands if we don't fight for it. And so I use all of that when I speak to these people. And I'm saying, look, I'm not your typical business, and I need you to understand what we're doing here. Are you going to help me, or do I need to talk to your boss? Right. And I go to the next person. I set a big demand of, hey, we're going to get what we need, because it's not just about us. This is for this nation. We're going to get what we need. They're going to do it when we say to do it, and they're going to do it for free.
Yeah. I'm smiling while I'm listening to this story because I love my friend. And I can imagine, think about how the call that most of these guys get. When you tell most people who are like customers that they're not going to get what they want, what do? They get mad. Now, I know you don't get mad because I know you. And what you just said is a lot
I don't get mad. I say, you just don't understand.
Right. But the level of intensity and authority in your voice that you just showed on the podcast, I know that that's exactly how you talk to these people. And I can imagine
100%.
the person on the other end of the line is just like, okay.
Oh, I'll turn a no and do a yes real quick.
I believe you. And it amuses me greatly because I would love to have like a hidden camera on these other people while they're encountering you for the first time. But like, really listen to what G said there. I'm going to have you come in and lay this pipe faster than you do it for me, the way I want it done, and it's going to be free. Wait, what? Why would anyone do that? Well, because you have a belief in what you're doing, and you have an expectation that there's other people that are going to have that same belief. And so because of that, you're like, hey, this is going to happen. And if this person's saying no, I just haven't found the right person.
And it's not like, hey, just give me stuff. Just a little piece of context here for people not familiar with the industry. I'm getting utilities to bring power to my building. I'm going to still pay for the power.
Yeah.
And I don't even own that pipe.
Right.
But a lot of times they make the customer pay for the pipe because it's like, well, we've got a lot going on.
Right.
And the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like, no, bring me the power. Right. This is a critical project. Tell other people no. You're not telling me no.
Man, I'm so amused right now. I'm just going to move forward. But yeah, I love that. And like when you have that kind of belief though, I think about how many people are doing things in their life that when someone tells them no, they just go, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. But honestly, you laugh, but really think about that, man. Like, I mean, we have thousands of people that listen to our podcast, and my heart,
that's the definition of passivity.
Yeah.
You just let it happen. And just by the way, just drop this one in here for you. There is one king in the Bible that it says that this king angered God more than any of the other kings before him. And what Ahab did that angered God was his passivity. So just so you know,
yeah,
passivity offends God.
Look it up. All right. So
Look it up.
gee, well, let's dive in. So I want to highlight some areas where we see this a lot for people, and something you always say to me, and I used to try and tell you that I told you this and take credit for it, but I realized Pastor Keith's been saying it for a long time because I've always said I want to squeeze every drop out of life, and so sometimes we'll be doing something, and I'll be like, so we're gonna go do this, and G will just look at me and go, squeeze the lemon.
Now, since I was a little boy, Pastor Keith's been saying squeeze the lemon, and in one of my it's one of my favorite things in life. Like, I got so many great things in my life that Pastor Keith gave me when I was young, and this is one of them because I just saw somebody. Like what I saw in Pastor when I was like 10, 12, 14 was somebody who just wanted all of it. And he's the first person that I saw in life that was like, I want all of it.
Yeah.
And when you meet someone like that, it changes you because most people aren't that way. And so he would say, squeeze the lemon all the time. And I there's a keynote that I do. You know, my Unstoppable Team keynote, my culture keynote, winning culture. But there's another one that I do called Unlock Your Superpower, which is a little bit more just on the.
I know that one as well.
On the motivational side,
Yes.
it's a lot less corporate. And one of the things that I talk about my superpower, which is perspective.
Yeah.
And one of the perspectives that I share at the end is squeeze the lemon. You've got to just have this mindset about life that I want all of it. You squeeze the lemon and you get some of the juice, but there is juice left in the rind, and most people will die that way. They will die with juice left in the rind. Just decide you're going to be someone. They're like, man, how'd you get 7 glasses of lemonade out of 1 lemon?
I squeezed the lemon. And side note, you may have heard Garrett talk about keynotes because we had somebody reach out recently. Garrett does do speaking for corporations, Fortune 50 corporations you've heard of, like 7-Eleven and other well-known.
Well, some of my good friends from Oracle, I appreciate all you guys that listen to the podcast, and I love getting to be with them. So it's a blast.
Right. So if you're out there and you're like, man, we need to infuse some life into our team, and you are looking for somebody to come in and rock them with some corporate speaking, email us at info@theimpossible.life. And you can get more information on that. All right, G. So we're going to dive into it. And the 5 areas that we're going to talk about are money, your health, family, marriage, and your relationship with God, because these are areas that most people have, and they're leaving stuff on the table. And before we do, there was this great quote from a guy on the podcast Modern Wisdom. We both enjoy that podcast.
I do.
Chris Williamson. He's from England. You know what I mean? And this is the quote that was attributed to him that I think is so wonderful. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And if that is not a nice, concise way to talk about, hey, you're leaving it on the table, that's it. So
as we jump in, I just want to again give a recap. Here's the whole thought process I want you to have from today's episode. Right, it's better math, and like it's time to start multiplying your equations in life instead of dividing them. Friction in your life, and friction is passivity. Friction is a weak mindset. It's a wrong thinking. It's a lack of understanding of principles. I could go on and on and on about all the different frictions in your life, and it's hurting your math. You're getting poor outcomes. What I'm saying is, just like in the speed, cost, quality equation, I can actually go faster and not change the cost or the quality because I know we are not at maximum efficiency yet. Now, there is a limitation point where I would say now we can't go any faster without increasing cost or quality. But most people never get to that point, and they accept these false limitations where it's like, well, the only way that my finance could get any better is if I just made more money. Now, your finances would get better if you made more money, but there are other ways. The only way that my marriage would get better is if I just, didn't work as much. Now, that it maybe if you spent more time with your wife, your marriage would get better. Maybe. If you're not doing the right things, it might not make anything better. Yeah. But there are also other ways to make your marriage better. So let's jump into these. Yeah. Talk about some examples of where maybe you could just be a little more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, and money was the first one we put on. And you kind of talked about it. A lot of people say like, oh, if I made more money, it'd be better. But I think if a lot of people made more money, they would just spend more money too. And there's stats out there that show this. Like
hey, listen to Dave Ramsey. It blows me away when I listen to these people that call in that make like $55,000 a year and have like $300,000 in the bank account and own 3 rental properties. I'm like, good for you, dude. And then it blows me away when people call in and they're like, me and my wife's income is $475,000 and we have like $500,000 in debt. It's like, what? What are you doing, bro? Right. There's some really poor efficiency happening. So just imagine, right? Just take an example. Let's walk through this for just a second. You operate on no budget. You're just, willy nilly. If it swipes, then good, and if it doesn't swipe, then means I need to make more money.
Yeah, we'll do it later.
That's probably not a good way to live. But if that's where you're at, we could without increasing your income, we could begin to increase your level of finances by, well, if Garrett just follows you around and says like, hey, save more money, right? Save your money. If I just follow you around every day and say, hey, save your money, save your money, save your money. Well, you would make a lot better choices. Now, there would be stuff that you're like, I know I need to save money, Garrett, but I have to put gas in my car. I need to, I broke the handle on my toilet. I need to buy a replacement. Like there would be things that you have to do. There would also be things that you stop spending on. And that would help you a lot. And if we could get to the very end of that, and it's like, all right, I've cut out all the nonsense. Well, but I still would like to increase the level of my finance. Well, then we could say, well, where are maybe some areas where we could, you're paying for this service. Do we need that level of service? Or you're subscribed to 4 different, video services. Do you need all of these services? Or you've got 2 different, PDF accounts. One's $7, one's $13. You're paying for the same thing twice. Maybe we could cut some things out. We can continue to get more efficient in that way. There's multiple levels that you can start to go through in your finances before you just get to the point where you start saying, oh, I got to just make more money. You can increase your budget. You can increase your, not just budget for a month. You can start thinking about, how do I budget over a year? Where do I want my money to go to? And again, I'm just saying, this is an example of financial management, financial control, stewardship. If I'll be faithful with the little I got, then I'll get more. Because right now, maybe the worst thing for you is you making more money.
Yeah.
And think about that. God's like, man, I'd love to give my son a promotion, but he's such a dingus with his money. I'm not going to unlock him yet.
Yeah.
Just like, and it's such a great quote for this episode today. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. The magic you're looking for isn't in you making more money. The magic you're looking for is in you managing your money better.
Yeah.
And then when you make more money, that making more money will be a multiplication for you, not a worse division.
Yeah. And you said something in there, as you often do, in like one sentence that I want to pull out because this is a massive unlock. You talked about maybe you need to have a budget for more than just a month, or maybe you need to budget for a year or beyond that. That is where I think there's a lot of the work that you're avoiding, because the first thing I ask somebody when they say they can't afford something, I can't afford a tithe, is I go, do you have a budget? Oftentimes it's no. Now, sometimes people are like, yes, I do. I'm like, okay, well, is your budget for month to month? Because think about if you only have a month to month budget, what are you saying that you're committed to living?
Yeah.
We're committed to living month to month and paycheck to paycheck. If you want to get out of that, create a plan that's a budget for how do I live year to year.
Are there things that happen in some months that don't happen in other months?
Christmas jumped up on me this year, G. Yeah, but like that's real. So budget for a year, and then okay, well that's okay. I've got the whole year now. Could you budget for 5? Could you budget for 10? Because think about what you could do if you had very intentional focus with 10 years worth of savings. Like everybody wants to get whatever 10 years of savings would be for you. Let's say it's $150,000. Like everybody wants to just have that lump sum right now. Well, unless you have a business or you have some stroke of luck, you're probably not going to get that lump sum. But I'll tell you what you could do. You could plan to get to that point and what you would do with it. And if you know principles of money, and at some point I do want to have somebody on here to go into money more. I've got someone in mind. I think that would be helpful. But I wanted to pull that out because that's the work you're avoiding. And that's where you start to tap into the 90%, because now you're not just committed to, hey, I'm going to live paycheck to paycheck or month to month, and you start going longer term. Where I learned this massively recently is in health, and particularly in lifting weights. Shout out to my man Cody McBroom.
Cody,
I give him credit all the time. He taught me
Shreds O'Houlihan.
Shreddis O'Houlihan is Cody McBroom. As you know, Garrett and I are still competing with Norm. We finish up, praise the Lord, in 9 days. I can't wait to be done. But I am getting very lean, and Cody has made it a very scientific.
Like I said, no losers in this competition.
There's only winners.
One winner.
That's
no
right.
Losers.
And so, but what Cody taught me is the term reps in reserve. And what that means is it's as he puts it, the no lies, what you actually have left in the tank at the end of your set. So if you sit down and you do 4 reps of 8, this is where I was. I would be like, okay, I'm going to do 4 reps of 8. And I was working on the tonal. So I'd be like, whatever the tonal says, I'm just going to do it. Now, sometimes you put up that first set of 8 and you're like, oh, I feel great. And then by the time the 4th comes, I'm like, yeah, I still feel great. That is what's called having a lot left in reserve. And what he told me is he started saying, if you're doing 4 sets, the first one you have 3 in reserve, second one you have 2 reps in reserve, third one you have 1, and the 4th one you have 0. You know what 0 reps in reserve looks like, G? It means
failure.
I questioned if I was going to be able to actually get that up, or if I was going to have to, if I was at the gym, I would need a spotter to step in because I was basically going to choke myself out. For me at home in my tonal, what this looked like is like my wife going, "Hey, are you okay?" Because my muscles are on fire and I'm grunting out, like legitimately going like, "Bah!" like to get that last set, and I can't wait to press the button and turn the weight off because I'm just like, man, that was like you face doubt. Do you know what happened? I did the same 4 sets of 8. You know how much more I got out of those? How much more my muscles began to grow? How much more my strength began to grow? Because you can do the same exact thing, but with a completely different mindset, and you're leaving so much on the table. And that's a really simple physical exercise to understand. But like when you start to understand reps in reserve, you can still, you don't need 7 hours in the gym. You need a really, really focused 45 minutes to an hour where you understand what you're doing.
It's kind of like one of the primary inputs in the principle of growth is change. If nothing changes, then nothing's going to change.
That's exactly right.
You have to change your level of effort if you want want to change your level of strength.
Yeah.
You have to change your level of effort if you want to change the amount of muscle that you have.
And you got to want it all. We've said it a lot on this podcast. We've kind of talked about it without actually saying it. Like that is one of the prerequisites. If you want to be comfortable, forget this whole podcast.
Hope is not a multiplication. Hope is an encouragement.
Right.
Right. So what I mean by that is you doing your standard 4 sets of 8 and then hoping things will get better.
Not a good strategy.
Not a good strategy.
Now in family, G, what does this look like in family?
So I think there's a lot of ways that you could try and maximize efficiency in your family. But let's just talk about family and marriage together here for a second. I think in marriage, a lot of guys get stuck in their marriage and like, well, my marriage just is what it is.
Right.
I was on Instagram yesterday, dropped a fat comment on on Bradley Martin's page. Just there was a woman on there talking about she didn't want any kids, and I hope my sister has kids and I'll be an aunt, and I'll get to enjoy their little lives, and then quote, I'll give these demonic soul suckers back to their mom.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
does she babysit? Because
all I heard on her video was I. And I just commented on there and I said, if you want to live a miserable life, make it all about yourself. There's a lot of support on there. There's also I got a lot of comments, a lot of hate on there. And I just, I just laugh at that stuff. I don't respond to a lot of it. And this one girl sent me her long justification of why she's made the life choices that she's made.
Yeah.
And I just clicked on her page, this is all her bio said. It is what it is.
It's a great way to live.
And I felt the sympathy that I have for a blind person when they're falling down. A lot of men will look at their marriage and they're just like, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's not true. There is Pastor Keith's a great template for marriage. I love it's the way that I lead men. I do a lot of marriage coaching one-on-one.
Right.
Right. I talk to the man. I help the marriage. I don't need to talk to the woman. I just need to talk. Maybe the woman's got some problems. That's okay. I'm just going to talk to the man. And I can just tell you men, there is so much more for you in your marriage if you'll decide, not like, how do I get her to change? What else is there in me?
Yeah.
This is, I could go long on it. This is Ephesians, how Ephesians teaches on marriage, how the responsibility on a man is different than the responsibility on a woman. But unless a man can look me in the eye and say, I've reached my ultimate, I've become everything that God has created me to be, then you haven't maximized your marriage. And I promise you, if you have a milliliter of intimacy in your marriage, when your wife sees you give all that you have for your marriage, when your wife sees you give all that you have for God, when your wife sees you leave nothing on the table, I promise you, maybe your wife did nothing, your marriage will get better.
Yeah. And highlight for the limitation factor on this is that it's shown to you all around. Hey, we love sitcoms where the man's an idiot and the woman's really smart and they fight all the time, but hey, they're still in love. Or hey, you know what? All my other friends have this same problem. This is how marriage is. You are literally accepting what we highlighted earlier, the low standard of limitation.
Interesting hot take on that, really quick.
Okay.
Not a hot take. Interesting take. Andrew Tate talks about, he thinks that the beginning of the downfall of America was the TV show Friends.
Wow.
Because it's these weak, passive men, and all living together with women, and the whole show is just like the beginning of hookup culture and the change in gender roles, and men aren't men and women aren't women.
Yeah.
Like he has a strong theory on how Friends is the beginning of the downfall of American
I think
culture.
that's probably a reflection of his age. I think I'm a little older than Andrew Tate, and I would point to a show like Married with Children with Al Bundy, where he just sat with his hand, literally he'd have his hand in his pants and be like, okay, pig. And he was an absolute loser. And his daughter was hot. And like she would come in looking all hot, and like, you know, she would have all sorts of bad relationships, and his wife was just, you know, doing what she was going to do, and he just sat there on the couch because that was funny.
And just because some of you need to hear it, I'm not endorsing Andrew Tate.
No, yeah.
He misses the mark a lot of the time. What Andrew Tate is, both literally and figuratively, is he's a fighter. And so he fought. That's where he developed any success in his life. And he fights against things that he thinks are wrong. And so occasionally he'll fight the right things.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, so understand what Garrett said, that you're leaving a lot on the table through your thought process. Same thing in family. You know how I think this shows up in family, G? People will go, I've got kids now, they're 12, 10, and 6. And when they were real little, people would be like, oh, enjoy them now, because when they get older. And this is not like one person that said
good,
this.
Nick.
This is like 5 people. And me and my wife were adamant. We've always had this attitude that we're going to enjoy every single phase that they're in. Now, is there some trials that are happening right now as my oldest daughter is entering into hormonal teenage years? 100%. And when I say trials, I don't mean like, oh, the other day. I mean like the other 6 and 8 months, and like we're still in it. But like this is part of growing. I'm not mad. This is my job as a parent to help mold my kids. And you know what's happening actually is she's going from I'm a kid and everything is just about fun to like I'm starting to have more responsibility. Well, we're not naturally wired to work. You have to learn how to work. That was something Rod said on our podcast. Is like you have to learn how to work. We're learning that in our family. And guess what? It's not all sunshine and roses, but that's where you have to have this thought process of like, I'm not going to sit there and go like, oh, when's this going to be over? Or, oh man, this is just these hormonal teenage years. No, this is part of their development. And you know what? I'm going to enjoy it, because you know what I still have with all my kids that I'm very proud of and I always intend on having is a really close connection. We love being around each other. We have a relationship that's a bond of love and trust. They know that I'm for them and that I'm always on their side. And so if you have this thought process of like, well, these are the good times and I better enjoy them because there's going to be times when there's not, you are accepting limitation and not seeing what's actually possible. Because I look at like, you said your parents said that they always wanted to have you guys want to be around them, and that's what makes
their
you guys
definition of parenting success.
And I've adopted that, much like I've adopted your parents. And I literally, that's what I aim for. I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, I hope that when you're older, you still want to be around me. That would be the greatest mark for me as a parent. And so I'll challenge you in your family. Don't accept the limitations of busyness, the limitations of work, of money pressures to take away the core of wanting to be together as a unit and loving each other and enjoying each other in all stages. Whether the person's being lovely and wonderful and their best at the time, or whether they're showing you the worst side, you love them, you stay close with them, you hug them, and you keep going and you keep speaking. This is the best season of our life. And guess what? And then you go make it happen. That's the importance of family. Anything you want to add there, G? Very last one, and we left it last because I really want people to grasp this, is your relationship with God. I'm identifying some of the obvious limitations. I think for a lot of people, when they think about the relationship with God, they're like, well, I haven't been as good at my Bible reading. And actually, I don't have that much time, and I'm trying to find time to be consistent. And like, what I really need is I need hours of no distraction. What you really need is
I hear that when people say like, how do you do it?
Right.
I don't know. I just get up in the morning and spend a few minutes with God every day. And I'm not like, 4 hours in my Bible. I can't. I have a lot going on, but what I have been is consistent in my life.
Right.
And that's where you're going to grow in your relationship with God. It'd be like trying to date a girl and it's like, all right, next month we'll go on a 7-hour date.
Awesome. Yeah. That sounds fun. But that's a lot of people's thought process. And so they think, oh, if I could just get, like you said, a long period of time with where it's just so isolated and focused and no distraction. You need to bring God with you to your quote unquote distractions. That's the actual secret of walking with God and getting closer with him, is that you don't have a sacred secular divide. I read a book that Pastor Josh recommended called The Practice of the Presence of God by a guy who's been dead for 100 years called Brother Lawrence. And the main takeaway that I would have from this was a guy who was known for the presence of God. He said that God would never be far from his thoughts. If he was sweeping the floor because he was a monk, or if he was sitting there like setting up for service or whatever he was doing, he said he always had God at the foremost of his thoughts. And I just think it's so simple.
The Bible says pray ceaselessly.
Yeah. How do
Pray
you-
without ending.
Right.
That doesn't mean like you're on your knees all day long praying. It means be prayerful, be considerate of the Lord. Keep your mind on him and every single thing that you're doing. So my hope for today's episode is that this is a reminder, that this is an encouragement for you to squeeze the lemon, that there's more life for you. Stop doing bad math. Decide God has a great plan for my life. I'm going to be a great steward. I'm going to do all that I can. And when I do make mistakes, because you'll make them, when things don't go my way, because sometimes they won't, that I'll learn from those things, and those are opportunities for me to grow. God has a great plan for my life, and ultimately, I'm going to see everything that God has for me.
Thank you very much for listening, guys. Remember to share, like, subscribe. If you think that this would be something that someone would enjoy, please send it to them. We appreciate it all. If you want to get in touch, you can follow us on Instagram at The Impossible Life. You'll find us on there. You can also email at impossiblelifepodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you want to get in touch and find out about Garrett's personal or business coaching, that's the way to do it. Thank you again for listening. Go out there, think better, and live the impossible. See you again soon.